how we do it at HBCU game, man.
Froze up. You know what time it is.
You already know. Flag.
Turn down, turn down. Turn down for what?
Thank y'all.
What's up, gang? And thank you for hanging out with your crew here at HBCU Game Day. I'm Tolly Carr here in Atlanta, but we're about to take a trip to Tallahassee, Florida. Now, of course, that means FAMU. And today we are talking Rattler football, but in a scope that is larger than just what happens on the field and in between the lines. We are talking social activism, which is nothing new for the Rattler community. In today's episode, we're going to see young people in action. I used to be a young person. They're going to be addressing the unrest of the present, and we'll also take you back in time for history and a bit of perspective. Because whenever Black America has needed a voice, an HBCU community has been right there in the fold. Today's episode was produced exclusively by our friend and partner, Mr. Vaughn Wilson, and no one knows the Rattlers like Vaughn Wilson. Let's get down to Tallahassee.
Say his name!
Jacob Blake.
Say his name!
Jacob Blake.
Say her name!
Breonna Taylor.
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 Say his name!
Jacob Blake.
Say his name!
Jacob Blake.
Say her name!
Breonna Taylor.
Say her name!
Breonna Taylor.
Say her name!
Breonna Taylor.
The public shooting of Jacob Blake has reverberated across the nation. A nation already reeling from the fallout from what has been referred to as a public lynching of George Floyd. While protests and riots have broken out across the country, many are left wondering just what to do. An unlikely leader acted on the inclination that he could no longer just sit and do nothing. Florida A&M Junior defensive back Blake Simpson woke up out of his bed with a mission to organize a march that would start on the Black Lives Matter street mural on the edge of FAMU's campus and end with a rally on the steps of the state capitol.
Well, tell me, how did this plan come about, planning this march here today?
I was just sitting down at the house on Wednesday, just watching ESPN, hearing them talk about Jacob Blake and all the police brutality that's going on. And I feel like being a black man in America, it's my job to have something like this, have everyone come out, have their voices heard, because it's directly affecting me and my people.
So I know that you have previous experiences because in Atlanta you were there when the riots happened this summer.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, how did that experience help this one for you to play your role?
It helped me in a big way because I was able to get out there, voice my opinion, and seeing the wrong ways to do it and the right ways to do it. I had to make sure we had everything in control, contact the police department, make sure we block the streets off so nobody gets in trouble, everyone stays safe at the same time.
No racist. Police. No justice. No peace. No racist. Police. No justice. No peace. No racist. Police. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Hands up. Don't shoot. 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 And make sure that we all are aware. And this is a never-ending fight. This is a never-ending battle that we're fighting every day. I feel like the motive behind We Have No Choice is basically saying, with everything going on in 2020 and back then and everything that's gonna go on beyond this, I feel like we have no choice but to stand up. We have no choice but to have our voices heard. We have no choice but to vote.
Coach, understanding that you're also kind of an activist and a community leader in your community, how does it feel for one of your players to step out and do something like this?
It gives us as coaches the most joy when we see our own take initiative. And obviously with everything that's been going on, it's hard to sometimes gauge the pulse of 100 guys. But when Blake, came out with the idea to have this march, I was very just honored to be the head coach of such inspirational young men, who take initiative, who don't sit back on the sideline and watch and complain about the things that are going on, but actually get out and do something about it. And so for us to do this today makes my heart warm, and I think it's the first step in a long road ahead of us to really initiate change.
You know how long we had to fight for this very right to vote? And y'all not using it? Do it! Do it! Y'all not mad enough for me. You're not pissed enough for me. Do the basic groundwork. Do it! It ain't that hard. Do it! If you don't have a means to get to that guy home, call me. Text me. My Instagram is Naya M. Lewis. DM me. I swear to God, I'll drive you there and back.
Arriving at the steps of the historic old Capitol, which remains in front of the newer current Capitol building, in which laws are made, speakers demanded change in the policies which abet racial inequality, especially at the hands of police. There to also monitor the situation was FAMU VP and Director of Athletics Courtney Gaucher and Deputy Athletics Director Keith McClooney. Both took a background role but expressed their support for the peaceful demonstration. Gaucher said, "I felt it was important for our student athletes to see me support their effort. It goes along with our philosophy of aiding their overall growth as they matriculate through college."
You make sure that you can make it to tomorrow. You make sure that you eventually get the platform to do what you need to do. And most importantly, you make sure you have the bread to do it. You know why? Because we can look at it from a democracy perspective. We can tell y'all to vote all day long, but that's really all up to y'all. Y'all are grown. I'm not gonna yell at you and tell y'all to vote. Y'all are grown. But what I can encourage you to do is get that money up. Because we just talked about the democracy perspective, but what about the capitalist perspective? In America, what talks? Money, right? That's all they care about. So, I encourage all of y'all to pour into the Black economy. The reason why we never see the change that we hope to see in 1968 or 1964 or 1988 is because we don't have a dollar unified. We don't have what the Asians have. We don't have what the Cubans have. We don't have what the Jewish have. We have our voice. You can clap that up, clap it up. We don't have that yet.
My heart was about to explode. I was bursting with pride because when we think of activism at Florida A&M University, those two words, FAMU and activism, are one and the same. They're synonymous because of our historic legacy of activism through the years. I was also concerned because not only am I an administrator here at FAMU, but I'm a mom too. A mom of two beautiful African-American young men. And there was also concern about the moment and what may happen. So I began quickly to just pray about it, even when I saw the flyer, I started to pray about it. But I was also ecstatic too. We, as African-American mothers, many of us, as I have, had the talk with my sons. They are enjoying the academic course, the academic journey here, but there's also another course. It's called Life, Reality 101. I saw Blake Simpson, and I thought of another Blake Simpson, a similar Blake Simpson. His name, Colonel Brodus Hartley. There was word of 2 co-eds that had been arrested for being courageous. And Colonel Hartley, who was then our SGA president back in the 1950s, heard that same news. He talked about the fact that students started to gather in front of our historic Lee Hall, and they were wondering what they could do. We decided to take a stand. In that moment, they knew that they had to act. I could see Blake's face and that same stance, that same tenacity that was all over his face.
So finally, what does it mean to have your teammates here supporting you? I see guys here, supporting this movement for you. So how big is that?
It means a lot. It shows the brotherhood that we share at within the family at Florida A&M football. Everyone is very supportive of me. I'm very supportive of them, and we're gonna have each other's backs regardless.
Put yourself in his shoes to have his teammates as well as his coaches support him on something as big as this, to have this many people here.
Well, we talk about being a family all the time, and whenever in a family, whenever one of your brothers or sisters feels a certain way about something or does something important, it's important that we as family members support them. And so when Blake brought the idea about, as the head coach, I thought it was my duty to assist him in whatever way I could. And so we got the message out to the team, to the coaches, and he did a great job of getting it out to the community. And as you can see today, we had a great turnout, and I thought this was a very successful event.
Activism in the Deep South goes back to the 1950s and 1960s, but from all accounts, it's still going on today. Bold leaders who simply have had enough step out of their comfort zones and organize and strategize to stand up for what they believe. While Colonel Brodus Hartley is one of the most notable of these individuals to whose fraternity Blake Simpson now belongs, over the years, some incredible ordinary folks have stepped up and led the charge for justice. They include former FAMU SGA President Philip Agnew, who co-founded the Dream Defenders to fight for justice for Trayvon Martin in 2012. Attorney Darrell Parks, also a former FAMU SGA president, partnered for decades with civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump to fight civil defenses in notable cases. Former Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum, also a former FAMU SGA president, led a march in 2008 to early voting to ensure the election of Barack Obama. Over the years, stars would come out to support these causes as well, finding refuge at HBCUs. The likes of James Brown, Muhammad Ali, Dick Gregory, Angela Davis, and Martin Luther King Jr. found welcoming audiences on HBCU campuses across the country.
It's troubling in 2020 that we would be carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders, and especially our children, with these kinds of issues. We're talking in some regard about a race revolution almost. And what really bothers me is the fact that when Colonel Hartley spoke here at FAMU, came back to share his sentiments about the bus boycott, his involvement in the community, those that we have heard of, read about, known, loved, who were arrested during that time, there was a statement that he made that just really pierced my soul. And he said, while life is better and the wheels of progress have moved quickly, at the same time, we have to proceed with caution. It was almost like he was forecasting back in 2016 that the dark clouds were going to be on the horizon again. And little did we know that 4 years later, we'd be in the midst of living a very bad dream. It is unfortunate that our children are having to experience this, experiencing the stories of those, our legends, who fought, who gave their lives, who were brutalized so that we could go to any restaurant we want, to ride the bus or not, to buy anything we want, to send our children to any institution that we desire. But here, our streets are filled with tragedy, death, brutality, fierce emotion, and heartache.
Welcome back to this special edition of No Huddle, and you just watched the March compilation put on by FAMU football player Blake Simpson. And we have with us today Blake Simpson and his head coach Willie Simmons. First, gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Good. I'm doing good. How you doing?
Doing well, Bob.
Doing great. After watching it all put into perspective, Blake, how are you feeling about what you were able to accomplish?
I'm feeling good about everything. I think it's had a positive effect on the students at FAMU and also some students that came out from Florida State, and also the adults. The police department also contacted me and let me know that we did a good job with staying within the guidelines and staying on the street and not causing any commotion. So I think it had a positive effect in that. So socially, I feel like everyone was able to get out into the public, and I have different people contacting me, telling me that it was a great event, and I'm glad we did it.
Coach Simmons, you were like a proud papa. You were participating up near the front and just smiling on your players and fraternizing with your players. How did it feel to be taking part in something of this nature initiated by one of your players?
It was an amazing experience. I think it's one of my proudest moments as a head coach, as a coach in general, to see one of our young men take the lead and put something together that was so impactful. It was a great turnout. Everyone got involved. Local police department, FAMU police department, Florida State, FAMU, the community. And it was something that brought us all together. And I think that's what these marches are about. It's about unity. You know, it's not about division. It's not about anything negative. It's about unity and bringing awareness to something that we as African Americans have faced for a long time. And so for Blake to take the initiative and to be able to put it together in such a short period of time and to get the backing of his fellow peers and classmates was something that was truly admirable. And I commend them for being a leader in this time where leadership is sorely needed.
Well, Blake, not to put any pressure on you, but Carmen Cummings-Martin mentioned you with some grand company. Of course, Colonel Brodus Hartley, and of course, Kendrick Meek, who was a Rattler football player, played defensive end from Miami, organized some marches while he was in college, and also became a Florida State representative where he arranged one of the biggest marches in Florida history against Governor Jeb Bush and the One Florida Initiative. How does it feel to be mentioned in the neighborhood with those guys?
It was very touching. It meant a lot to me to be put up with names like that. That's those are such big names in the Rattler family. And I'm just glad to be considered as one of those names. But really, it's not even about me. It's about we're trying to make change. And it's an ongoing fight that's been going on from back then, what she's talking about with those gentlemen as well. So to be here today and we're still having to fight for it, it's heartbreaking, but it's something that's needed and something that we have to do to come away with this one day.
Exactly. And Coach Simmons, when issues like this come abound, HBCUs seem to unite. You being in the HBCU realm for a long period of time, just talk about how HBCUs put aside all of the banter and unify under circumstances like this.
No question about it. Again, as an HBCU collective body, that's something that we're all passionate about. And as institutions that were started because we didn't get some of the same opportunities as our white counterparts, it's incumbent upon us to continue to educate those who step foot on our campus as well as the communities around us. And that's one thing Florida A&M has been committed to doing for over 130 years, and institutions alike. And so, we're bonded by that mandate to continue to empower Black and brown people in this country. And so I think it's important that we continue to do things like this, not only as an athletic program, but as a general student body, as administrators, as coaches, as alumni, and as community leaders, to continue to march, continue to make our voices heard, because obviously that's the only way that change is going to come. We can't sit back in the weeds and hope that something's going to change. Like Blake said, this has been going on for a long time. And we had a gentleman sit on the steps with us and tell us that he and his mom marched that same walk 40 plus years ago. And it was his wish, as he sat on the steps out there in the sun with us, that in 40 years that we're not sitting there watching our children have to march from the school to the state capitol to talk about social injustice. And so it's an ongoing fight, but it's got to be something that we're committed to. And things that, like last week, what Blake put together, he and his classmates, were it's a great start to the fight that's ahead of us.
Thank you so much, Vaughn. That was really some powerful storytelling. And thank you to Blake Simpson, a young man who understands his place in the world. And wow, man, his willingness to step up and be the change that our communities are looking for. Really, really admirable. Salute to everyone down at FAMU. All right, another episode is in the books. The No Huddle comes to you every Sunday at 12 noon on Aspire TV and always available at HBCUGameDay.com. If you haven't been to our site yet, come on. We'd love to see you there. Until next time, you guys have a great week.